So we can manifest something in the physical realm, but we can also manifest an experience. If we stay curious and engaged and in our humanity with a deeper awareness of experience rather than accumulation. I just think we're going to see some really interesting things.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. We are in the new energy. How is everyone feeling? I am so excited to kick off this year. I know the energy is supposed to be a lot. If you've been following the astrology, if you've been following human design, if you've just been tuning into the collective energy and news cycle and anything going on, there's a lot there. But I think it's also really ripe for possibility. At the top of the year, we can really feel into what are the things we want to change? What do we want to call in? How do we want to harness this fresh start? What seeds do we want to plant? We are reconnecting as a community on January 6th for our live call with Lacey and I, where we're going to kick off the second part of the challenge, where we're really going to craft our list, understand what is our dream life at this moment in time, and how can we start to manifest the things that will support us and connect us to that vision of our dream life over the course of this next year. I know so many things coming up for me are a lot of internal shifts. 2024, there was a lot of material things that came through, and I'm sure I'll have a few still on the list for 2025, but a lot of them are in states of being, how I want to feel while doing the things that I love, how I want to feel on a day-to-day. How can I tap into that energy, vitality, health in such a different level? So we are kicking that off on January 6th. If you have not started our authenticity challenge yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend doing so. We have our last sale window for a long time open right now that is closing as well on January 6th. So if you want to get in with the lowest discount you're going to have for months, now is the time to join. You can catch up on part 1 of our authenticity challenge, really connecting with who your true authentic self is at this season in your life and what it's calling for. Even join the live call if you haven't caught up with the challenge yet. If you're brand new and just want to join with that live call, I think it's a great place to start. It'll be at 11 a.m. PST and it'll be replay available, so you can tune in really anytime. But just set this year off with some big intention and really get clear on why that is so important to you, why it's ringing in your soul right now to call that forth. Because I think everyone's feeling that buzzy energy, and really strip away the shoulds. I should start a workout routine. I should make all my food at home. I should do this. It's like, let's drop that away, get really clear on what feels good to us right now, even if it looks different or opposite from what people think you should be doing at this time of year. Maybe for you, you don't have a regimented movement routine. Maybe your routine at the top of the year is to just listen to your body to have a 5-minute check-in and be like, body, what do you want to do today? How can you cultivate that true connection to self of what that authentic soul in you is calling for? And so excited to see what transpires on the other side. Now, today we're going to talk to Dani Beinstein. I did a poll to the Instagram audience, and the number 1 requested astrologer to have on was Dani Beinstein. She's a huge fan favorite of the brand. We love having her on. And Dani's perspective on astrology, I think, is so different and nuanced because she looks at it through a psychological lens. She looks at it through the lens of What is the bigger mythology of the collective going on through the lens of astrology? And I think it's actually the perfect episode to kick off this year with. We're going to kind of cover what the main themes of this year is for the astrology. You can look up your chart online, just any website that has a free birth chart. I know I like Cafe Astrology is a good one. Astro Charts is another good one. But check out where some of the impacts she states hits your chart, where some of those signs are. And I think more globally, looking at this next year, how can you be open and ready for change? That is a theme that just keeps hitting me over and over again. There's going to be a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of change. And how can we get comfortable with that change? And I think part of this next year of manifesting is understanding what things do you truly need to feel really, really, really supported? How do you build up your safe foundation, your inner safety, your inner self-worth, your inner self-love? So if things shift in the world around you, that you have that foundation. You know, whenever, anytime astrologers like, it's going to be crazy, which Dani does not do. She's not fear mongering anything, but you do hear that a lot, especially, oh, this year is going to be so nuts. But how can you take your power back in any of those situations and not see it as a fearful situation, but a situation in which you can harness the ripe power of transformation and of change? That is my hope for all of you, to look at this year with just the most heartfelt intentions to really honor your true needs, knowing that that is going to be the exact medicine that you need that's going to support you no matter what happens in life. So excited for you all, and Happy New Year. Enjoy the episode.
And now a word from our partners.
Have you ever experienced hair thinning, your hair falling out in the shower, trying to grow thicker, fuller hair, but it feels kind of lifeless or limp? Or maybe your hair is super greasy like mine is prone to be, or has flakes in it. At this point, you guys have heard me express my profuse love for Acton Acres product line. It has been so incredible supporting my hair growth journey and really addressing the root of the problem. Because you know at TBM, we like to get down to the root. What I loved about Acton Acre and what made it truly stand out is their founder, Helen Reevy, is a board-certified trichologist who really understands the scalp and how the scalp's microbiome impacts how your hair grows. So she created an entire line of products to support your scalp health, which will in turn support your hair growth. It's not just getting the vitamins in, although that's part of it. It's about a holistic approach to scalp care. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, the number one question I get asked when I hop on stories is like, what did you do with your hair? Because it is growing so long and luscious. And I really attribute it to this routine with Acton Acre. 20 minutes before I shower, I put in their scalp detox. This is really the baseline of scalp health. This helps remove the impurities, the sweat, the buildup. If you use products, if you're in a place with high pollution or bad air quality, anything can get trapped around in your hair. And especially because I have super long hair now, making sure I clear all of that so my scalp is detoxed and cleansed properly, because most shampoos do not do this for you. So I put that on first. Then, if my hair is still greasy, I'll use their salicylic acid scalp exfoliator. It used to be called their Scalp Renew. I swear by this product. You only need to use it maybe once, twice a week max, and just put it on 20 minutes again before you shower instead of your scalp detox that day. Rub it in with your fingers, and the next wash, you will notice a difference in your scalp. It will be way less greasy, more buoyant, more full of life, and less dull. It also gives my hair more volume. I swear by this product so much. And then their third product, which I've been testing out and loving the effects of, is their stem cell scalp serum. Now, this is something where it's really going to help you grow that thicker, fuller hair. It's formulated with Swiss apple stem cells, which are clinically proven to improve hair growth and boost thickness. And if you've been wanting to test out any of the Act and Acre hair care or scalp care products, including their shower head, which I also swear by, head over to Act and Acre, that's ACTANDACRE.com, and use code TBM30 at checkout for 30% off, or check the link in the show notes to direct you right there. Enjoy.
All right, on to the episode.
Dani Beinstein, I have to tell you, we did a little poll to our audience and we're like, okay, if we were to do an episode on what to expect for the astrology in 2025, who do you want to hear from? You were the number one requested astrologer. They're like, we must have Dani back. We need to hear her take on this. Amazing other astrologers. Thank you guys for sending the other requests too, but it was unanimous. So we were like, we're getting Dani back on.
Well, I'm always so happy to talk to you. It's such an honor. I love our chats.
So good. I love your unique perspective on it too, because it feels more grounded in, I think it helps astrology become more grounded in the soul's evolution, in the spiritual, and the psychological, really rooting it besides this transit's happening here. Good luck. Yeah. You know, it's like, what does this mean for our soul's mission and why we're here and our purpose, authenticity, our manifestations, all the things. So 2025 is going to be a big year. A lot of outer planet transits, which I heard is a very big shift in energy that's going to be happening. But you started to kind of kick it off before we even started recording. What is this main core of this shift moving us into energy-wise?
So it doesn't, nothing completes exactly at any point, but it really is setting the stage for 2026, which is the movement out of predominance in the outer planets of water and earth into fire and air. And what that energetically means is we're moving out of a more responsive energy to a more proactive energy. Less yin, more yang, per se. Now, it's always important to recognize we carry our energetic imprint within us, our natal energy. So I, for example, as someone who has a lot of earth and water, I'm not just going to suddenly wake up and be fiery in a way that is out of my core nature. But the energetic atmosphere overall is going to shift markedly. And there's been this illusion kind of hung over from the 90s that we are in a post-historical era. It's not case. Living history is going to ramp up. Energy globally is going to ramp up. But for us on an individual level and the agency that we do have, there's going to be a quickening. Time is going to start to feel like it's speeding up. Technological advancement and integration in our lives is going to feel like it's speeding up. How we react or respond to that is based on a host of factors, but the energy is going to be less promotional of, I'm wary of using the word surrender because I think people hear surrender and they hear passivity. So, it's an ancient wisdom to take action but surrender outcome. But there is going to be more of a feeling of proactivity. Taking our lives the progress of our lives more into our own hands through engaging conversationally, engaging socially, that's air, engaging intellectually, and fire, which is instinctual and inspired action, or just action in general.
I'm already starting to see themes of this, even within the TBM community. We're going through this authenticity challenge, and I think it's really uncovering for a lot of people places where, they maybe always dreamed of acting, or they maybe always dreamed of being a singer or a songwriter or launching that blog or doing a different thing with their life, a different passion. And they're finally giving themselves permission to see it and pursue it without it needing to be this whole reorganization of life. They're like, I'm just going to sign up for that class. I'm just going to write that song and put it out.
Yes. So we're going to see more of that. Simultaneously, this is interesting. So eclipses are related to nodes. They're related to the nodes. The nodes take about 19 years to move around the zodiac. Eclipses run on 19-year cycles. That's the link there. And an eclipse occurs when a new or full moon is in proximity to the nodes, in conjunction or opposition to the nodes, the nodal axis. So in January, on January 11th, 2025, the nodes move from Aries and Libra into Pisces and Virgo. We only have one Aries Libra eclipse left. That's on March 29th. That's a solar eclipse in Aries. That completes that 19-year cycle. But the eclipses that started April 19th of 2023, that completes. And we already started with the September 17th of 2024 eclipse, full moon eclipse in Pisces. We started the Virgo Pisces. That will continue into 2026. But we will see 18 months from January 11th of 2025 all the way to June 30th of 2026. The North Node will be in Pisces. The North Node moves backwards. So it will then move from Pisces into Aquarius, and the eclipse will move into Leo and Aquarius. That will start to happen. But as we ramp up this fire and air, we are experiencing this North Node shift into Pisces, which is an interesting dynamic because it feels related to taking inspired action and then letting go. Because Pisces is all about that surrender. It's feeling part of something greater in the unseen world, the totality of it, all of it, the seen and unseen world. So it feels like the energy is ramping up, but in order, like you said, to just take that class, to sign up for that workshop, to press publish on a Substack, that involves some fire. That involves some, I'm just going to take the action. Let me learn as I go. So I think we're going to see some of that. So we have the eclipses. We have 4 eclipses in 2025. The first 2 are March 13th and March 29th. The March 13th eclipse, it's in Virgo. It's a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And then September 7th and 21st. So those are in Pisces and Virgo, respectively. So the eclipses are going to be about balancing our mundane lives, our everyday lives, our quotidian lives, our health, our well-being, the systems of our body, the systems and organizations of our day, our health, our well-being, all of that, and this greater surrender and letting go. Jupiter, which is a planet of expansion and growth, is in Gemini until the spring. June 9th, it moves into Cancer. That is a water sign until June 30th of 2026. So the North Node will be July 26th of 2026, and then Jupiter in Cancer is June 30th of 2026. That's where we're seeing water pop in more so in 2025. But Uranus, so when it comes to manifestation and it comes to personal agency and it comes to co-creating with the universe, Uranus is really interesting because Uranus likes to throw us curveballs. Uranus is where we experience unexpected change and where we are called to upgrade or update our way of moving through the world. Where Uranus is in our chart reveals where that is in our chart, where we may exhibit some rebellious energy. So Uranus is moving since 2019. It has been in Taurus, which is fixed Earth. It's moving into Gemini. That starts July 7th, that lasts until November 7th, and then from April 25th of 2026, all the way from August 3rd to 2032, it will stay in Gemini. Gemini is communication. Gemini is information and how we take it in. Uranus is the higher octave, many believe, of Mercury, which is the winged messenger, communication, which rules Gemini. So it feels like the way we process information is going to speed up. How we respond to that is based on our makeup. That's what I mean by a quickening. The energy might feel as if it's speeding up and that time is collapsing at a faster rate. That happens as we get older anyway, that feeling. But I think our relationship to language, our relationship to communication, all of that is gonna undergo some pretty stark shifts and how we think about things and information.
For the piece on, I want to go back to the Jupiter one because I have a thought on that too. But For the piece of the quickening, you see things like AI technology, and I don't even think we can register all the ways in which people are going to utilize those tools in the future and what that means. And I just keep having, I'm one of my authentic codes is innovation. And so I keep thinking, okay, how can people that may be afraid of change, may be afraid of new ways of doing things, may really like the way that things have been going in certain regards. Like, let's say I think of like a copywriter. They love writing copy. They have a passion for it. They have a system for it. They know what they're doing. And AI comes along and they're like, get this thing away from me.
Yeah.
I don't want to go that route. But I think the invitation is now, if this becomes the norm or industry standard, or you can process faster, how can you be the leader of your artistic process with this tool? How can you make your process faster with this tool? And I think people who can accept that and start to lean into it will have great rewards from it and be like, wow, I got all this time back because I figured out how to make this work for me instead of being fearful of it being a replacement of some sort.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also tethered to Pluto now in Aquarius until 2044, right? Pluto is transformation, change, and power. Aquarius is technological innovation. So since the beginning of time, human progress has been linked to innovation, from irrigation to shipbuilding to, the printing press to railroads, automobiles, planes. It's changed how we exist and live as humans. The internet, obviously. So I do think there will be, the rate of change is accelerating in terms of integrating technology. If we respond to it with fear rather than curiosity, apprenticeship, recognizing all tools are neutral until they're directed, then I think you're absolutely right. And it's coming. The change is coming. And I say this as someone who, has considered myself a Luddite for most of my life. Like, don't love technology being everywhere, would not want to live in a smart home, for example, where I walked in and I said, turn on the fridge, start cooking the pasta. Like, that's not the life that I particularly want to live. But I think of it exactly like you said, where can we use it in a way that feels supportive? And also, how can we move through fear and not let fear control us? Because it's hard to feel creative, experience our own creativity, our own ingenuity, if we are in fear. Sometimes cortisol can spike up, and under duress, we can come up with really wild solutions. But overall, it's like, if we stay curious and engaged and in our humanity, I just think we're going to see some really interesting things. I mean, we'll see the flying cars and the driverless cars and all of that, but who knows what else we're going to see.
It is so wild. I remember when I was a kid, I'd always talk on the landline to my friends. And I remember talking to my dad and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if I could see a little video of you on the phone when I called you? And we were like, one day, like maybe at the end of our lives, we'll see it. And then it was like maybe 5 to 10 years later, it's the norm.
Yes.
And we're recording a podcast virtually. It's moved fast. And I think it's going to move so much faster. And I think the fear also can very understandably come from, how do I belong amongst the newness? How do I connect? How do I have moments of true reality and be grounded in the things that I love, that is tactile, earth, that is not in the air, ethereal, etc. And I think, at least for me, one of the things that's giving me a little bit of solace is like, okay, I get to choose when and how I opt in. As far as I know right now, I can still walk in my backyard and put my feet on grass. I can still watch the sunset. I can still build a fire in the fireplace. Like, I can still connect to those very earthly, human, tactile things. And having moments of that, it helps, it helps to ground me in, okay, there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm going to have to adjust to and get used to, because you can feel it coming.
You can feel it coming in. I think, listen, I would say that chief among my values is regenerative farming. It's probably the thing I'm most, other than animals, which is all related, most passionate about. And the thing that I keep asking is, how can innovation actually help us to be more hands off to allow ecosystems to regenerate? Meaning, it's like if we go from, this is such a minor simplistic example, but if we go from fax machines to email, how much paper is saved? How many fewer trees have to be cut down? So I try and look at it from that perspective, because I wonder if there's ways where we can be more mindful, not try and create new innovation to make the earth do what the earth does better by just being hands off, but that doesn't require us to take so many of the, earth's natural resources. I just think about things like that. Like, I don't have the answer to that. That's not my skill set by any means. It's way above my pay grade. But that, I try and come from that perspective versus we're all going to be in spaceships and disconnected from the earth.
But I think it's that thread is the invitation that each individual has to look at what that thread is that's calling to them throughout this journey of this next year. Because that roots to, okay, from your authenticity, you're like, regenerative farming is this passion of mine. I love it. It's a value. I really care about it. And it's starting to ask these questions of, how can we make things better? How can this be whatever it is? Even just having this conversation, in a tiny snippet on this podcast, maybe someone else who actually works in this industry hears it and then's like, wait, that's interesting. And then they take it, and you see how the germ of the idea can spread and move and expand so rapidly. So part of the invitation, it sounds like, for this next year is, what is calling to you authentically in this next phase that you see how the world can improve in some way, and how can you ask those questions more boldly or take action on some of those questions or ideas or something towards that path?
Yeah, I think there's a meme going around, something around the idea that we want AI to do the more menial things so that we have more space for the creativity, rather than handing over the creativity, like having AI write a script. It's like maybe AI transcribes that script and puts it in the proper format, or helps us, how would a character phrase this in a foreign language or whatever. I know that AI is much more advanced than just that simplistic. But the idea, hopefully, is that we create more space for humanity and human connection and the creative part. And we don't hand that over just because it's lucrative to do so.
Even as you were saying that about the script concept, I think it was Tom Ford, when he came up with the idea for one of his films, he literally got in his car and drove, and it was like playing like a movie in his mind's eye, and he let it play, and he just kept driving till it came through. And then he had to go back home and, write for 24 hours straight to get it all on paper. But what if the process of writing a script becomes different, where you can have it playing as a movie in your head and you can dictate it, and then something else puts it in script form? What are the ways that you don't lose the creativity?
That's what I think about it. This has been a very real journey for me, because I've been very interested in history and the past. It's taken me a long time, I'm in my mid-40s, to say, actually, I get to live now. Like, what if this is, I just wrote a Substack about this, like, what if this is the golden age of innovation and I am not seeing it because I am so romanticizing the past in a way where I'm not embracing the future? And that has all kinds of implications, right? But I don't say this with like flippancy, because it's been something that I myself have had to process, but I think that it's a very real and true thing. And it's always really messy when we have a new invention, always. And we are at the very, 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 very beginning stages of this new technology. There is an incredible podcast called The Emerald, where this guy speaks for like 2 hours or more. And he talks deeply about seeing the magic of AI and how do we use such magic, right? If you think about magic throughout history or wizardry, or there was an apprenticeship to it. One had to earn the honor to be able to employ the magic. But we all have it at our fingertips. So what does that mean? There's a responsibility piece, a really big responsibility piece. And that's, I think, what's not being spoken, or it is being spoken about, obviously, in certain circles. But I don't think the answer is just to clamp down on the innovation. It's to invite greater responsibility within the users, like any tool since the beginning of time, including money. Everything is neutral. It's what we do with it, and it's how we express our personal responsibility and integrity in relationship to it.
I think also to the quickening aspect of things, I've noticed this with manifestation, where the results of our responses, reactions to life is happening faster. So if we are faced with a test or a trigger and we're like, all right, this has come up a lot, I see this pattern, let me just take a second and like process my feelings on it, do a deep imagining or journal on it, or like really understand what is going on here that I keep repeating this pattern and what do I need to do to change it. Part of that action, that fiery Aries action, is like, cool, now you have the courage to choose differently, to now go in the destiny towards your higher self. Whereas if you choose not to look at it and you choose to put your head in the sand with it, or you're like, oh, I'll deal with that another time, you're going to see another test even quicker, because it's like, no, you don't have time to put your head in the sand. You need to start moving towards your higher self.
Yeah, I think there's something really interesting there, especially with Uranus moving into Gemini and the idea of mental processing speeding up, meaning what we notice, and communication. Is there going to be an acceleration or massive upgrade in our communication skills, in our ability to articulate things at lightning speed or notice that they're happening? Because Taurus, where Uranus has been, is pretty dense energy. It's fixed to Earth. It doesn't like change. And so Uranus is going to say, okay, let's go. And I wonder about that. And I wonder about if levels of consciousness. Okay, so the other thing is, as we move into more fire and air, there's less of an attachment to the material realm. I'm not talking about nature and putting your feet in the ground. I'm talking about accumulation. Having less to weigh us down, I think, will become more in vogue than just the accumulation of goods. So we can manifest something in the physical realm, but we can also manifest an experience, which in essence is the truer version of manifestation. Because even if we're living in a house, we're all just renting, even if we own it, right? Because we're only here for a short period. But the idea of getting more into experiential knowledge, and the idea of moving through the world with a deeper awareness of experience rather than accumulation.
I'm going to share a little mini manifestation story for you guys about how the Our Place Always Pan helped Daniel and I reconnect with our authentic desire to cook really good meals at home. So in our previous apartment, we had a super tiny kitchen. There wasn't a lot of storage space, so that meant very limited number of cookware items or things that we could cook with. And when we were in the kitchen, we were always slamming into each other. We always had a million dishes, and it became more of a headache than something that we truly enjoyed. And about a month before we moved, we got the Our Place Always Pan. It was in the clay color. It's super chic. It's beautiful. You actually want to leave it out on the stove because it looks so good, which in a tiny kitchen helps with storage a lot. And it's a 10-in-1 pan, which means you can saute, sear, bake. Yes, that means you can put it in the oven, braise, fry, boil, roast, strain, and steam. It comes with a little strainer pot so you can steam it and strain your noodles or anything you want. And you can serve directly out of it because it is so gorgeous. And best of all, and honestly, most importantly of all, it's non-toxic, which means there's no Teflon, there's no PFAS, there's no chemicals that is in any of the lining of the pan, any of their appliances, any of their cookware, anything that you'll get from this brand. They're completely non-toxic, healthy, and sustainable choices. So many other pans on the market almost greenwash or say that they don't have a toxic chemical in their lining, but they actually do in the main pan, or different parts of the pan have toxic chemicals attached to it. This one is completely non-toxic and chemical free, which is such a relief when trying to cook healthy meals to also not be adding chemicals while you are cooking them. I also am obsessed with the way that it cooks food. I am someone who loves making my eggs and my omelet in the morning. I cannot live without it. And the way that a pan cooks an egg tells me everything about how much I'm going to use that pan. And I am telling you, I have cooked on a lot of different pans in my life, even some other non-toxic brands out there, and nothing cooks my eggs better than the Our Place pan. I highly recommend it. Daniel has been cooking everything in it. And since we moved to our new place, we haven't stopped cooking with it. We have used it literally every single day, multiple times a day. It's so easy to clean and wash off. And it truly is my favorite pan of all time and thing in our kitchen. And it really helped reignite this passion we have for cooking food at home, which I truly would have thought was just not part of my authenticity. And it turns out it actually really is. I just didn't have the right pan. Our Place is having their holiday sale right now. Save over 35% on your order through January 12th. Head over to FromOurPlace.com/TBM and see why more than 1 million people have made the switch to Our Place. With their 100-day risk-free trial, free shipping, and free returns, you can shop with total confidence. Shop the Our Place holiday sale right now. That's FromOurPlace.com/TBM. I've also had this just thought that's been kind of bouncing around, especially since we released our Clear Your Aura DI. And I started thinking about auras and this concept of auras and the energetic field we have around us, and how there are people, when you are around them in their presence, your energy can shift to a more positive experience because they are in that true grounded alignment. Just physically being around them, you're like, oh, wow, that feels great. And not in a energy vampire way where you're taking their energy. You just witness the truth in them, which allows you to witness the truth in you and be in your own energy. And I wonder, as you're kind of saying this, of this newness, the communication, it's like communication through energy. I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time, but maybe that will become even more evident.
Yes, there's a woman named Penny Pierce, and she has been writing about this for a long time. And the idea of even telepathy, which arguably could be a Piscean thing. Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces right now. They're both going to be moving into Aries. This is the big shift. So Neptune starts to move into Aries March 30th. It'll stay there till October 22nd. And then early January of 2026, it'll stay in Aries until 2039. Long time. But with Saturn moving into Aries first May 24th to September 1st of 2025, but then February 13th of 2026 into April of 2028, February of 2026, Saturn and Aries meet at 0 degrees Aries, which is the Aries point, which is like a reset button. So we have this movement towards Aries, which is the new beginning. Interestingly, numerology is not my expertise, but 2025 is a 9-year, which is completion. 2026 is a 1-year. 2026 feels like a real new beginning to me, real new start. 2025 is like the touch and go of that, as we start to integrate more fire energy and how we harness fire energy in our lives, with air fanning the flames.
Yeah, when you think about fire energy, or when I think about fire energy, I think about fight or flight, or anger, or intensity in the body, inflammation. You can think of how the shadow side of fire, there's the positive side, the higher side of fire, that could be that action, go-getter, let's move and clear and blossom in all these ways. But then there's also that when it gets stuck, when it gets trapped, what it burns down, all of that stuff. What advice would you give someone that feels like, okay, how do I calm down that intensity, especially with the air too?
Such a great question. So fire is used in almost every spiritual ritual, from lighting a candle to the fire walk, right? Literally walking through fire. And so fire, the burning down is not necessarily a bad thing, like burning off residue, burning off things that don't resonate, letting go. So there's that element. But if we are too heated up, anger is interesting because anger is a feedback mechanism. You know that game Operation? You ever play that? Mm-hmm. And you zing, and then it buzzes. It's a feedback mechanism to know a boundary's been crossed, we've been hurt. Aries is direct response rather than holding on to it and letting us seethe. So ideally, it's something happens, we respond to it. There's this whole idea, like in the animal kingdom, if an animal has experienced something scary, like a lion cub, this is in the book, I think, Waking the Tiger, the animal will replay it with other cubs in order to shake the experience off. We tend to, as humans, hold on to it, shut it down, not talk about it. So there's something about, again, processing things with greater speed. I'm going to let it run through me. I'm going to let the experience burn off. Versus I'm going to take this anger that I don't want to feel and I'm going to hot potato it. There's almost like a, let me just feel it and move through it. If you have anyone in your life who has an Aries moon, you'll know what I'm talking about, especially an Aries moon, because they will have a strong response, unless Saturn's involved, they'll have a strong response to it and then move on, as opposed to someone who carries resentment, anger for a long time. So I think we are going to be seeing a speeding up of moving through anger. That also means sometimes action will be taken from anger. That's not ideal. So we want to use the fire as a motivator to express our highest self and our talents and our skills. And we want to see it as useful in burning off what doesn't serve.
So it sounds like there could be an invitation to, especially with so much Aries energy over the next year and the eclipses and all of that, to kind of figure out a new way of relating to anger, a new way of relating and processing healthy anger. And what does that mean? And how does that serve us versus it letting it control us and stuffing it down and it coming out, as inflammation or things like that? Or how do we utilize it to invoke change, but not from a righteous place, from a more integrated place?
Yes. And I think also learning how to take action rather than play victim. We are really moving out of victim consciousness as an operating mode and into proactivity, because it really drains the spirit to stay in victim consciousness. There are moments when people are victimized. There is no question about that. But to hold on to victim consciousness drains the spirit. And Aries doesn't have space for that. It's like, okay, these are the cards you're dealt. How are you going to play them? So I think we're going to see a shift in the collective around that. I also think we're going to see a shift in the collective around more examples of heroism. We've had a lot of anti-hero energy in the collective. I always look to storytelling because I've been doing this since my college thesis, right? What are the stories that we are telling as a collective? A lot of the stories that we have been telling have been apocalyptic. If you go back to like the Hunger Games, right? Because it precedes it. It has been apocalyptic and also anti-hero. The bad guy who's the protagonist. The bad guy in quotes, right? Who's the protagonist. Like, for example, I think a big show on Netflix right now is The Penguin. In the original Batman story, like Penguin was not the hero. I think we're going to see a shift back to the hero and stories about the hero. Just like I felt with Saturn and Pisces, we're going to see an uptick in religious conversion, which we are seeing. And some more return of the rom-com, which we are seeing, like romanticism, Pisces. But I think with Aries, we're going to see the return of more of the hero storytelling.
I also feel like the anti-hero storylines are helpful in uncovering the shadows, because in all the anti-hero stories, it's like, well, what made them get there? What happened to them? What was the trauma? You get to start to have that understanding of what gets someone to that point.
Yes, 100%. I'm not arguing with that at all. I'm just saying what I think we're going to start to see in the collective.
100%. But I think it's interesting because I think that allowing it to see the shadows, allowing the anti-hero stories to be at the forefront previously or currently, allowed, I think, people a new insight into what like the whole craze of the serial killer documentaries. I think part of the reason people are fascinated is they're like, what breaks someone to do that? Like, why would they get there? What happened in their life? And now that we kind of have, empathy might be the wrong word, but now that we have more understanding of how that happens, it's like, okay, how can you now have examples of people that maybe face similar traumas, but transformed it for the positive? And instead of letting it lead them down the dark path still, how can it lead them to a higher evolution?
Yes. And I mean, that really got kicked up with, let's say, The Sopranos in the late 90s, really paved the way for these stories and humanizing criminals, looking at like where all of that is true, everything you shared. And it just, Aries it's less psychologically layered and complex. We're all psychologically layered and complex, but it's just, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to play the hero in this situation. It is the sign of the warrior, and it's ruled by Mars, which is the god of war. So I just think we're going to see more of that energy. And again, there can be shadow in that, because someone can say they're acting as a hero, but actually doing a nefarious thing. So there's always layers to it, but that idea of I want to be a hero or I am a hero, I think we already kind of started to see that with the Aries and Libra eclipses the past couple of years. But I think once Saturn moves into Aries and then when Neptune moves into Aries, we're going to start to feel more of that.
That's so interesting. I didn't even think about the lore or the narrative or the mythology of what stories we take in as a collective now. Because you like you said, I like to look at it too, of the history, like what did we learn here and what stories were we telling around the campfire here? But now, okay, what are the stories of the collective? And not even just, on television or in films, but in news cycles. What garnered popularity? Like what came up at the top of the story that everyone was collectively induced in? I think that's so fascinating.
And listen, things that bring fear do sell. So there's been that element, and that probably won't completely go away. But I think we will see some shifts in that regard.
Back to Jupiter going in. So I have Capricorn Sun, Cancer rising, and I've been told that this Jupiter placement is very positive for if Daniel and I want to plan our wedding.
100%. Cancer is emotional bonding. It's emotional glue. It's emotional bonding. It governs the emotionally nurturing parent. It's part of the parental axis, which is Cancer and Capricorn. And it seeks out emotional security. So Jupiter takes about a year in a sign. So Jupiter moving into Cancer means it's going to cross into your first house. And Jupiter rules marriage. So there's something there about growing your family. So not only about you two marrying, but if you want to have a baby, that could start to really be on the table. Very
interesting. And my fiance has a Cancer moon, so he's connected to the Cancer sign as well. So there's lots of good energy there.
So with Aries and Cancer energy, we're also talking about cardinal energy, and cardinal energy initiates. Cancer energy initiates emotionally and sets the temperature emotionally. And Aries, controls by taking the lead, taking the reins. More agency, more I'm gonna, take the reins of my life. How do I want to grow emotionally? Jupiter is growth. How do I want to invest in ties that bind or close emotional relationships, biological and makeshift families? And then Aries is, how do I want to be the hero or heroine of my own life, right? How do I want to take the lead?
So where could people look to see where it impacts them in their chart or what part of their life? Would they look at their houses and see where Cancer is?
Yes, that's for Jupiter. And then where Aries is, for where Saturn and Neptune are moving into. Gemini, where Uranus is moving into. The eclipses, where Pisces and Virgo is.
What other expanders or just things that are going to help those positive times where it's like, oh, you're going to hit that divine timing or you have the extra support? Are there any sectors of that over the course of this next year?
I don't think there are any universal pockets of that. Meaning, I think that's where it's hitting the individual. Like, for example, when Jupiter through Cancer, where in your chart is that? Where are you going to experience growth? And if it's hitting something, what are the dates that it's hitting a specific point? I think it's too Pollyanna to say the collective is going to experience this positive copacetic period. It is a heightened period in 2025. And then, so this is interesting, retrogrades. So Mars is retrograde in Leo. It's backtracking into Cancer. It'll go all the way back to 17 degrees Cancer. And then on February 23rd, it'll go direct in Cancer. A week later, Venus goes retrograde in Aries. Think at 10 degrees Aries, backtracks to 24 degrees Pisces and goes direct on April 12th. Both relationship planets are retrograde in the definitely the first half, closer to even the first quarter of 2025. And both start in fire and backtrack into water. Retrograde back into water. And then 2 of the 3 Mercury retrogrades start in fire and retrograde back into water. There's something about this water fire energy that reverberates throughout 2025. But because the first half of the year, or at least until April 12th, we have this focus on retrograding of personal planets, it feels like things are really going to jumpstart in the spring, when we also have these movements into fire and air. So it's really the second half of the year that I think we're going to start to see more momentum. Even though we do have the eclipses in March, Venus will be retrograde during those. It's a reviewing and revisiting of our values, our desires, our resources, how we spend money, how we receive it, how we give love, how we receive it, our love language. Mars is a review of what motivates us, what's our drive, how we go after what we want, our tactics. So it feels like the quickening is even more so starting in spring through the end of the year.
That really tracks, because I think also having discussions with a lot of people right now, because we're hearing in a lot of places, time is speeding up, all of these things, there can feel this pressure to have all the answers about how we're going to navigate it right now. Have that aligned action that we know we want to take, have that clear path to our purpose, have that way we're going to meld with innovation in a way that's for our highest good. There's this desire to want to have it buttoned up right now. But it sounds like the astrology is kind of saying, allow the pings to come through, allow the intuition to come through, but you don't have to have it all buttoned up right now. Like, in fact, you probably won't.
You can't. So this is also interesting because I feel like with fire and air, it's not so much planning the way we've been heavy in earth. It's more responding, preferably to reacting, moment to moment. And developing that self-trust, that inner fire to say, I don't need to, I'm going to have the skills and the tools to respond to whatever that situation is, but I can't plan for it. So that's developing, anytime we start to find equilibrium in our nervous system where the cortisol, when it's needed, it activates, but we are not living in a heightened state. That is really using the fire in a proactive way. I don't need to have my guard up. I don't need to plan for everything. I don't need to hoard all the toilet paper across the land. I can respond to what comes my way. And that's the burning off the residue so that we can respond to what is, not bringing all of our past experiences to the moment at hand. Are we upgrading and updating our thinking to the moment that's in front of us?
That's the trust muscle right there. That's really leaning on, I trust myself to be able to dance with what the universe sends me without having my 20-year plan laid out perfectly from a very strategic standpoint. It's like, no, all you have to do is respond to what's happening right now, and then do it again and do it again and do it again.
Yes, that's it. That's all we ever have. But that's part of the quickening. It's like developing that muscle more and more.
So when people hear this, we're going to get ready to craft our list together as a community the week after. And I just want to plant the seed for anyone listening that if you don't have full clarity on a very specific manifestation that looks in the way that it used to look, just get clear on the feelings. Just get clear on, I want to manifest in this sector or category of my life, and I want it to feel like this. You know, it doesn't have to be, I want to work at this job, at this pay, with this thing. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. How can you just feel into what you know you do want now, even if it's not fully buttoned up with a bow with every single detail in it?
And also what I heard from underneath what you were sharing is like, instead of looking to the externals to fill inside, it's like, how am I bringing the fullness of myself to each situation? And how am I connected to building my own strength, literally and proverbially, versus I'm looking for this job to deliver this feeling.
I think that, I mean, I've already started getting massive pings on that, but so much of what I'm seeing of wanting to manifest for the next year are all internal states. They're like, I want to feel connected to my intuition in a deeper way. I want to create more space to open that line of communication more frequently. You know, that's something I want to focus on. I want to bring to reality. I want to manifest. So start thinking about your manifestations from that point of view as well, too.
That goes back to the experiential.
Oh my gosh. I mean, collectively, it seems very exciting in a lot of ways. Scary, I'm sure, because change can be scary at any, level, but also like ripe for possibility.
Always. And that's, if we stay focused on growth orientation and a learning orientation towards life, there's always possibility.
There's definitely a lot of fear. I was even doing some astrology research. I was like, okay, what are the TikTokers of astrology saying going on? And it's all like, strap in, like it's going to be a big year. Like it's all kind of fear and a lot of fear mongering and, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this intensity? But I go back to sort of that spiritual concept of like, you wouldn't be in this time at this moment in life on this time of the planet. You wouldn't be here if you weren't able to work with the energy for your highest good. That wouldn't be an option. So you can handle whatever's thrown your way and you can harness the power and the magic of this as well.
We're never promised a copacetic environment. That's kind of the illusion of the modern age, that we have been more removed from struggle in certain sectors than we ever have. So then we inflate our fear of struggle, which is why I think we're going to see an increase of people doing hard things in order to feel connected to their own inner strength.
It's sort of like the concept where if you don't feel your low lows, you're not going to feel your high highs.
Yes.
Right? Like if you don't allow yourself to feel sadness, you're going to have a harder time connecting to your joy. And so if you don't allow yourself to go through a challenging moment, you won't be able to sit in the joy of your resilience.
Right. Do you lift weights?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like when you get to that point and you're like, okay, this really effing hurts and I am at fatigue and I have worked this muscle to that's actually a good thing. But somehow we think it should be relegated only to that moment of control when we do that in order to build our body's resilience to help our immune system and keep us strong and nimble and all these things. But that also applies emotionally. Like if we know we can navigate more difficult moments, if we know we can, to use TBM language, sustain the magic dark, we build our own ability to navigate uncertainty. Tony Robbins says that there's a direct relationship to our ability to withstand uncertainty and our success level. The more we lean into that, the more we can hold when things feel uncertain, the greater the possibility that we come up with an innovative solution. Not for all of humanity, but just even for ourselves, right? Oh, I didn't think of this, or I didn't think of this idea.
Well, and if everyone could even harness the energy of their own little pocket, their own little corner of the world, that does ultimately help humanity, because everyone serves a different role, serves a different purpose, helps the collective in different ways.
Always.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the magnetic self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest.
And we have our big end of year challenge, our authenticity challenge going on right now, where you can ground into your true authentic self, your soul's essence, your soul's desires, and truly manifest the life you desire from that place. You can check the link in show notes or go to our website, tobemagnetic.com, to access and learn more. Came to mind too when you were talking about our capacity to hold uncertainty, also made me think about the shifting of victim consciousness, because I think so many times the victim consciousness comes up as a fear of uncertainty because it's afraid that is the same way I was victimized before going to come up again, and thus I have to stay in the victim consciousness to protect myself.
Yes, I think that's spot on. Versus I'm resilient, I'm capable, I can navigate this. It's not denial of what's happened, but it's transmutation.
And even if you didn't have the support, resources, abilities to get out of that victimization situation at the first point, now do you? Now do you have other options? Do you have choices? Do you have different support tools you can lean on that can help pull you out of that fear of the uncertainty?
Yep. And are you supported also by individuals in your life who want to see you rise up, or who instead feed the feeling of a drained spirit?
How do you think this next year will impact relationships, friendships, romantic? I can imagine this is like just going to, because it's going to hit so many people different ways, and the change is going to be so big, it might have a bit of an upheaval of what our inner circles look like.
I think that's a great question. And I think relationships, when they are predicated on supporting one another's growth and evolution, allow room for that, allow room for the growth, for the who a person is becoming. But if we are attached to the status quo, it's the whole idea, if we grip on too tightly, well, that's going to feel suffocating. So do we allow space for our own growth? Do we allow space for the growth of those around us? And can the relationships withstand the growth?
And I think too, there's like, especially with all of that Aries, not people pleasing, not settling for maybe what we did in the past. Like maybe we let someone's, I don't know, if a friend is always in some sort of drama or gossip, and we kind of just like placate them and we're like, oh, that's just, who they are. We might not be able to kind of just smile and nod anymore. It might be like, okay, is this relationship really aligned? And getting to look at those spaces.
Absolutely. And then also, if it's appropriate, articulating that, not just ghosting the friendship, but saying, I know our friendship has history, but I am not in a place of, if something is really present, I am here to talk it through with you, but I am not interested in drama or gossip.
And then the beauty is, okay, cool. If you're able to do that, could the relationship evolve?
Yeah.
Could it become
Yes.
something you never thought it could have been before?
Exactly. And it's calling someone forward rather than placating them, which is a form of enabling. But then the flip side of that is, are we willing to be called on our own stuff? It's not just us outputting. Where are we stagnant? Where are we not seeing things clearly? And are we open to someone directly pointing that out?
Mm-hmm. And naming it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the beauty is, if your friend is able to communicate that with you about what's going on in your life, that's a beautiful blessing, because they're allowing you the opportunity to shift and change, and they gave you the opportunity to do it with them because they're bringing it to your attention instead of ghosting or disconnecting or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And that's increase in communication, developing communication tools, Uranus and Gemini, speeding up our ability to articulate what it is that we're experiencing.
Oh my gosh, Dani, what a big year. I'm
It's a big year.
excited. I think it's a lot to take in, but I think all we really have to focus on is the moment to moment. We don't
That's it.
really have to focus in every
No.
little step of every nuance. It's what's in front of me today, and how can I be most true and honest with myself today?
And it's also, if we have a learning orientation towards life, and a lot of us say we want change, and then when it shows up, we're like, no, I don't know if I want it that way. But instead saying, if nothing changes. So what is here for me? Even if it causes some discomfort, what's here for me?
Such a good reframe. Thank you so much, Dani. It's honestly so expansive every time we connect. I feel like my mind is just going to be like thinking about so many elements of this after. Such an honor to have you on. Where can people connect with you, find you, do circles with you, book sessions, all the things?
Instagram and my website, always. Everything is there. Yeah, so February 7th and 8th, co-hosting a little retreat at my house, an off-site retreat, day and a half, deep dive, filling the well within with Paige Apple. So if anybody is interested in that.
Oh, so cool. The in-person events, I'm like, I love it. I think it just transforms in such a big way.
It really, really does. And then I do the circles at my house and the Zoom and obviously all the one-on-ones.
Thank you, Dani.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacey, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out The Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.